Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ngokwana, and as promised last week, today I am sharing tips to get employment immediately after university, college, or studying. So today's Friday and I'm not working, so I just missed my YouTube community. Like, consistency is going to be very hard on YouTube because now I have a full-time job. But I promise, as soon as I have time, I'll come here and I'll shoot content. So let's just get straight into the video. I'm going to try to make it as short as possible. The first tip is to volunteer as a student. So I know some people are not students anymore. But I know like most of my subscribers are students because I can see on the algorithm that I have the age group is quite like young people. So if you're still a student, these tips are going to be very helpful to you. So the first tip, volunteer. Volunteer, because unfortunately, I don't think it is still practical to tell a graduate to volunteer. The cost of living is quite high. It's not going to be very easy to volunteer with your money, with your time, because I know some companies would promise that if you volunteer, you'll get a job. Sure, people got jobs through that process, but I think it's very impractical to actually volunteer as a graduate. You need money, you need food, money for transport. Yeah, no, I wouldn't encourage that. But like, if you are you're still a student and you are trying to position yourself for employment, the first way to do that is to volunteer when you're still a student. So I volunteered quite a lot when I was still a student. During my first year, I volunteered as part of the society. You know, in universities, we have these societies, these clubs that you could join, and I did that. And then I also volunteered in my second honors. So I have two honors degrees. So I volunteered again in a psychiatric hospital as well as a lay counselor. So basically, I was doing all these things because I was trying to get into masters, and we were told that if you do not have like some counseling experience or you've never worked in a psychiatric hospital, you will not be admitted into therapy-related type of masters. At that time, I was not thinking of like future employment, of course, but I can see now how that experience has helped me secure some interviews and also helped me to actually have something to write on my CV. So that's the first one. So I volunteered for a society, like I said. I volunteered in a psychiatric hospital and as a lay counselor. But the two came because of the collaborations that our university had with the local communities. So it was very easy for us. So it's a privilege. Not everyone would have access to such platforms, but we did. And I'm just grateful that I went to Rhodes University for my honors where such things were offered. That's the first one. And volunteering helps you to actually, start to know what's going on outside and also help you to develop some interest beyond your academia. It also helps you to not just be focused on getting A's, right? Or on being an A student. It helps you to actually know that there's actually a real world with real problems that need solutions. And then the second tip that I'm going to talk about is getting a student job. It's very easy to get a job on campus than to get a job outside the campus. So when I was doing my second year, it was not a paying job, but it was a student job, which had like, your register where you can sign how many hours you've worked. I had a supervisor, and I was mainly like tutoring, like for 2 years, second year and my third year. I was mainly doing that. And that helped in terms of, developing an interest in academia and also developing my skill in teaching, because students do not really hold you accountable like what an actual lecturing job would look like, or how a real lecturing job would judge you, right? So if you know you're interested in like teaching, tutoring is the first place where you could start, right? Because you're just tutoring first years, especially as a second year where I was studying, which was University of Limpopo. Then we had an opportunity to actually tutor first year students, right? And even if you're not so confident, but you know something, you go for those subjects because obviously you can't tutor subjects that you're not doing. So that was great. And the fact that now you're also getting referees, somebody I can always call and be like, can you please vouch for me, especially now when you're done with school and you don't have referees, you can get referees through that process, people who are your peers, people who can vouch for the work that you've done, people who know that you've really put in hours. So that's what I did. And I think my interest for academia, that's when it really solidified, because now I have realized that I could actually teach, from that moment. Because now I can see that students do understand, students liked me, students would come and tell you that you're actually doing good in this. And then I also got a paying job in my first honors. So I was working for like a computer laboratory, computer laboratory where you go and print and use university computers. I got that job and I was helping students with those things. And it was a paying job, right? And like university rates are really low, but at that time you're not really focused on what is going to happen after this, because you just need that 1,000 rands to get a t-shirt or whatever. Like, it can go a long way. So I got that job, and towards the end of the year, I got another job as an examination assistant. So a university used to be like a host institution for grade 12 metric marking. It was a marking center, actually. Yeah. And yeah, I worked for Department of Education Limpopo province as somebody who was like assisting the teachers with counting the marks, blah blah blah. And yeah, then I went to Rhodes where I volunteered. I already spoke about that. And it happened that I did not get into masters like immediately because it's a selection process. And yeah, I did not get placement that year. So what happens now? I have to apply for a job. Where's my experience? I can now write. I worked as a tutor. I worked as a mentor. I worked at a computer laboratory. I worked as an examination assistant. I volunteered at this place and that place, and I have references for such places. So even if like the work that I'm applying for, because at that time I was just looking for an internship that would like align with my studies, but the fact that people can see that there's something that you've been doing at university besides studying, that really helped in getting my first employment in 2020 when I was not studying, so I was not at home. So I got my first job. I started working in February 2020, and that's all because of I have decided to do all those things. So if you're still a student, don't just go to school and study. It's really not going to work for you, especially because people have connections. They have their father's companies, their fathers know people who can help them get into this, school holiday kind of working. I don't know what they call it, but there's like some sort of programs where you can actually work during school holidays or recess. So if you do not have such connections, I'm telling you to build those connections through the university channels. And so I got a 1-year contract as an intern, and we're not getting paid much anyways, but it was not like the money was not really an issue at that time, because to me it was like, no, I'll apply again and like I'll get into masters for 2021, because I'm applying 2020 this time for 2021. And COVID hit. When COVID hit, I was still working. Fortunately, the company continued to pay us even when we were at home, but somehow I just felt like I do not align with that job. So because I developed so much interest in academia, I wanted to go back to academia. And then I started applying to a TVET college. I actually applied to a TVET college and I was accepted into a TVET college before the contract could end, which is another tip. When you are still studying your career, especially at an entry level, always apply for a job 2 to 3 months before the contract could end. Because yes, they could promise you a job, but at the end of the day, if there's no budget to pay you, the job is gone and you're going to start from the scratch. And to apply for a job when you're at home is the worst thing. So Anna is not allowed, but use resource like your current company's resources as an entry to actually look for another job. I'm not saying resign in the middle of it. And I know, especially with government, the processes are quite long. So you might apply now in like October and get a response in February. And that happened to me, like in many cases where I would apply like for a job in September and I would get a response 5 months later. So always apply, especially at an entry level, for a job 2 to 3 months before the contract could end. And I'm not saying don't trust your manager when they tell you that they would give you a job. Sometimes it does not happen. And it's not that they lie to you, there's just no money or they don't want to hire. And that also happened to me when I was working at the particular TVET college. So they were trying to retain us, but unfortunately, there was no money. But because I had applied 2 to 3 months, on my last day, because I worked until the very last day, on the last day where I even signed the what do they call it, employment, like, but basically a form to acknowledge that the employment has come to an end and you agree. I signed that thing, and I think I signed that thing like, I'm not sure if it was like 3 weeks before the job could end. And I had attended an interview, like several interviews. And guess what? On the very last day of work, I got an email that I got another job. At this time, a 2-year contract with another company. And I didn't even serve notice because like I was done. Like the very same weekend, I was done and I was packing my things. I was preparing to go home. But because of I was proactive, I got another job. Okay, so another tip is to constantly check for vacancies. So what I would suggest would be every Friday, because the DPSA releases a new post every Friday. I would suggest the check post every Friday. So DPSA is like, I would say it's a database where the government would release government vacancies, if there are any. So you can do that by just going into the website and be like DPSA circular, and you'd see like the recent circulars that even like labeled like and dated. Alternatively, you can go to companies' websites and check for vacancies. That's how you get a job. Like you can't rely on people to always send you posts that are open. It doesn't work anymore. People have their own problems. Like be proactive in looking for your own job, right? Another way, if you know somebody who works in a company of your interest, you can actually ask them like, are you hiring? Because sometimes there are companies that are hiring through projects, so they don't necessarily like advertise through like the mainstream advertisement platforms. So they can just like, they hire by like word of mouth, you understand, because these are short-term contracts. That's another way people are actively applying, and that's not another tip. Like apply. And one of the things that I would tell you is that do not like exclude yourself. Do not exclude yourself and be like, no, I don't really qualify. If you meet 30%, 50%, I say apply for that post. Apply for that post. They will decide what to do with that post, because a lot of times, especially with women, we want to like fit the whole criteria. Like if we do not meet the whole criteria, we self-exclude. We're like, no, I don't qualify for this post. That's if you think you can do the job, if you think you're skilled to do the job, apply for that job. They will decide. It's unfortunate that rejections are not so nice. It's a little bit painful, but you get used to it. So I want to track back to what I was speaking about when I talked about university jobs and volunteering. Those are helpful, especially when it comes to creating a CV, because you cannot create a CV without some sort of experience. I mean, who would want to hire somebody who doesn't know anything? Because by volunteering, by getting those student jobs, you position yourself to fit some skills that could be advertised there. By the time I applied for my first job, I knew how to operate a computer. I knew how to work with people. I knew how to teach. I knew how to handle like group dynamics. I knew my whether I am hardworking or not. I knew whether I can work under pressure or not. Like there's something that I could write on the CV. So don't sabotage yourself, because also that tendencies to self sabotage while you're not aware. So after my second job now, I had to apply for a real job now. I'm a qualified psychologist. I have to look for a job. And one of the tips that I want to give to you right now is there is no better company that could offer you a job than the one that you're currently doing an internship for. When you're in that company, network, know people, build relationships, offer skills, offer unpaid work when you are still working for that company and getting paid by the company. Go, not like, don't be desperate, like don't give that desperate look, but assist where you can. You know Tell people about the work that you do. If you are like a master student or PhD student like me, then tell them about the work that you do. Why is it important? What do you see yourself? You never know, you might actually get yourself a job by just networking and putting yourself out there. Show interest in their work, honestly. Like, when people see that you're interested in their work, human beings are human beings. Touch that ego nyana now and again. People like that a lot, a whole lot. um and you never know what the result could be from those interactions. Honestly, that's how you get a job, like immediately after school, after internship. But the thing that I would always want you to know is that sometimes you might think that you're not qualified for the job due to whatever reason. You might get a job and you're anxious that you'll not be able to perform that job. I'm going to tell you to do it scared, do it anxious, do it not knowing what the direction is. You'll figure it out. You will figure it out. But also, the reason I'm telling you to do it scared is because you can never know everything. Like, of all the workplaces that I've worked at or for, I've always had to be taught something, and a lot of things had to be taught to me. And I realized that duties are there, of course, they'll be advertised, but it's important to know that if you're open to learning, you always learn some of the things. So don't self exclude. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you were able to pick up those points. I think I'm gonna summarize them again because they were a bit all over. First one, volunteer when you're still at university, get a student job, be able to create a CV and a cover letter. Oh, I didn't really emphasize a lot on that. So be able to create a CV. Guys, when you create a CV, you don't really need this extra formatting CVs that I've seen online where people are actually, advertising so many CV styles and whatever. Like, just use Word, type it nicely. Do not extra format. Like, just use Word, type your details, your skills, the if you have worked, what your work was, your duties and responsibility. If you resigned, what were the reasons to resign? Like, simplify that CV into Word, because some of these formats are not even picked by the systems that you're trying to impress. And if you can get an opportunity to get someone to review your Word CV, do it. But what is important is, even if your CV looks like, it looks like a magazine cover, guys, if there is no skill there is no content, you're not going to be hired. So CV, use Word, simplify, get somebody to review it, especially somebody who's been a professional, and learn how to write like cover letters. I still struggle with that a lot, but when you go online, there are always cover letter templates, and always like have multiple cover letters that represent different interests. For example, I'm interested in research and I'm also interested in academia, so I have two separate cover letters that represent both interests. But it's also very important that they also speak to levels, because currently I'm a PhD student, right? I'm quite experienced, right? But sometimes I would want to apply for like entry level in research, so I can't be bragging about my PhD, blah 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 blah. Sometimes it might disadvantage me. So you also want to have a little bit of a lower level CV, I'm not saying go for jobs that you know you don't want that money. If it's too small, it's too small. Don't apply for those jobs because money is also like a requirement. But if you're comfortable, you can even have a much lower, right? Cool. And then I also spoke about the importance of collaboration, networking, you know, put yourself out there. Um, Another one, constantly applying, checking the DAPSA website, the company websites, you know, talking to people already working. And the last one I said, do it scared. I mean, you're anxious. And I also spoke about, you know, applying for positions that you don't feel like you're qualified for. I mean, do it. Do it. So, yeah, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.